here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to talk a little bit more about my favorite tomatoes to grow, as well as my favorite way to preserve them. So I haven't done a standalone video like this in a while, so I thought it was time. So I have, over the years, been experimenting with different types of tomatoes, all different kinds, finding what's going to grow best in our cool and wet climate, even in a greenhouse. Even in a greenhouse here, there's some tomatoes that just do not do well for us. And this year was a new one for me, and that was the mortgage lifter. This one here is not entirely ripe. I'll explain that in a bit. And these are about the standard size of it right here, at least the standard size that it grows for me. And I am very, very pleased, and thank you to the follower who sent me the seeds. I had actually never heard of the mortgage lifter tomato. And there's more out there that are still coming in, and they're much bigger than the ones I'm showing you here. Even this, there's a couple of green ones here. Well, the thing is especially as it starts getting late in the season, and I notice my plants are they're getting old, they're gonna start dying. I start pulling the tomatoes off usually not when they're this green, but you can see it's got a little color. I mostly brought this in one so I can just show, this tends to be the standard size of these. And they will ripen quite quickly in the window, but that way now the plant can pour more energy into getting either more tomatoes or finishing out the ones that are already on there before it gets too cold. So that is why I do that, even though, yes, I do use green tomatoes too. I use them for making relish, and I've used them in a salsa verde, though I prefer my salsas to be red, which is what I'm going to also do with the remainder of my tomatoes this year. So these darker ones, to be honest, I'm not sure which ones they are because I think I mixed my plants up. But to me, these actually all look like these are the black Brandywine. And then, which I do really like, but the ones I like better that have a very similar color are the purples. And as far as flavor goes, if you just want a tomato for eating, adding to sandwiches and stuff, I think the purple Cherokees are the best. I'm assuming they're purple Cherokee because I don't know of any other purple tomato. There might be others, but people who have seen the photos that I've shown of my purple tomatoes, they say that is the purple Cherokee. Now, here's why I don't know for certain if that's the variety, is because years ago, we had bought just a bag of, it was kind of one of those mystery bags of tomatoes. You didn't know what was going to be in there, but they were all organic and heirloom. There was orange, yellow, red, and purple. Well, the purple one was my favorite for flavor, and I'm like, I'm saving the seeds from this. And I don't even know how many years ago it was, but it had to be at very least 10 years ago, very least. And ever since then, I've been growing purple tomatoes, starting with that very first seed. And then every year I save seeds from the biggest, healthiest one. Now, typically they do get bigger than this. Even the Brandywines can get bigger than this. I've been just working through my tomatoes so quickly as they come ripe that these are just the ones that are available right now, aside from the two really green ones I picked. And this one I'm also going to allow to ripen up more before I use it. But these here are ready. And anyway, the flavor of the purple Cherokee is so good. And they also grow better for us than the black Brandywine, which also has a really nice flavor. But they don't put out as big of tomatoes as the purple, nor quite as prolific. It seems like it takes the purples longer to really start putting on tomatoes than all the others, but when they do, it's definitely worth it, and we get a lot. Even in our short growing season, once they start coming in, they come in quickly. So that's just another reason why I really like those. Now, with these, people have been asking me, what's the flavor? Well, I think the flavor is good. I will eat them just like this, but that's not why I grow tomatoes. And one thing I found out about these that I didn't know, again, these are the mortgage lifters, until I started cutting them up and using them. And by the way, here's an image of the biggest one I got off of there so far. And I did save the seeds from that one for certain, because it is the biggest one. You want to save seeds from your healthiest tomatoes that you get off of there, or anything else that you're saving seeds from. But what I didn't know until I started slicing into them to process them was that they've got the texture on the inside more of a paste tomato, which personally is absolutely perfect for me. Though, yes, I've used them when we had family over for a barbecue. My tomatoes were just starting to get ripe, so I was able to slice up some of those, some of the brandy wines to use on the hamburgers, and they were great. I personally think they're fine for sandwiches and for hamburgers, but these are more perfect for me than any other tomato, even better than the paste tomato, which, like the Amish paste tomato, never did good, which is a type of Roma. Romas used to do okay for us, but I just kind of given up on them because I have a hard time getting really good, healthy Romas out here. Even though they can typically grow pretty well, I just get a lot more from tomatoes like this. And being that they're very dense on the inside, they don't have the real big holes and really lots of juice coming out of them. They're perfect for what I need them for, and that is for making sauces. So what I do with my tomatoes mostly is I puree them in my blender first. I leave the skins and seeds. Now I realize everybody's going to be different. Some people don't like seeds in their salsas and their Italian sauces and whatnot, and that's fine. If you feel you need to do that, you got to do what's best for you and your family. But personally, I never notice the seeds in the sauces. Maybe it's because I add so much other stuff, but it's just not an issue. And then the skins, because everything is just processed up like this, I don't get any of that weird papery stuff like people talk about. So I just throw the whole tomato in there. Other than this little piece here that I pull off, everything else goes in the blender. I then pour it into my silicone trays for my dehydrator, and then I dry them. I flake them up like this. You can powder them. I don't. And here, the reason why is that even though it can take up even less space and storage than using the flakes, the problem with the powder is that every time you get into the jar to take some out, you're gonna need to vacuum seal the jar every time. Otherwise, your powder in the jar can turn to a brick if you don't vacuum seal. So you have the option of powdering and putting in smaller jars, which are gonna take up more room because you're gonna have a whole bunch of these little small jars, vacuum sealing each time, or flaking them like this, and they don't have to worry about. I only vacuum seal them for long-term storage, but when I'm working through the jar or I'm filling the jar, this isn't vacuum sealed yet because, well, I'm not done filling it. I still got to top it off. This is my last jar that I'm going to do of the season. And once I'm working through it, I don't need to vacuum seal it. Sometimes they can stick together a little bit, but it's never bad. It's never like what the powder does if left in a jar that is unsealed, even if you put that band on really tight. So that's why I do not powder, but by flaking it like this, I save so much more space in my pantry than when I used to can all the tomatoes. I'm going to link to the video where I kind of show the step-by-step process of the tomato flakes if you want to see more of that. But it's pretty simple. But the thing is, I know that I can at least, for each one of these jars I'm filling up like this, that's at least 2 jars of canned tomatoes, at least. I think it's more than that, but I don't want to get it wrong and be exaggerating. So, because I'm thinking could be as much as 3 or 4, but I'm saving so much space by doing it this way. Plus, I find it easier to use this way. Though, yes, you can just open a jar of canned pureed tomatoes and pour them into anything. The thing is, in most cases, you're going to need to cook them down a little bit to get some of the excess liquid out, unless you're cooking the tomatoes down before you can them. But I don't really like to do that. But with this, the flakes, I just add as much water as is needed. And if it starts thickening up and getting too thick, I can add a little bit more water as it goes. If I want it thicker than that, I can add more tomato flakes. So I can take the flakes and do anything from making a tomato paste clear up to a tomato soup if I want it thin. So by making them like this, it really broadens their use. and in my personal opinion, the ease of use. Now this year, since we're down to our last bit of salsa that I canned up years ago, and I haven't made salsa in a few years, I am going to be making salsa with some of my remaining tomatoes once I fill this up. But since sometimes my salsa, when I can it, because I do it all raw, it sometimes can end up a little bit watery because I use all the tomatoes, not just paste type tomatoes. So what I'm going to do this year is I'm going to make up a bunch of salsa with the fresh tomatoes that are remaining. And then I'm going to add some of my tomato flakes from previous years. I grab the oldest jar there is and use that to thicken it up to absorb some of that excess water that's in there. And then it will help me get a thicker salsa. So I'm really looking forward to trying that. But that's one of the other main ways I put up tomatoes is by making salsa. And also, I sometimes do still like to cut up a fully ripe tomato, and then I don't really need to coat it in the oil anymore, but cut it into pieces and then dehydrate it. And then that gives you a nice, if you want tomato pieces like in your soups and stuff, or even your sauces or whatever you want to add it to, I do like having those on hand too. I just don't use those near as much as I do the flakes. Because like the last time I made chicken soup, using the bone broth from one of our own chickens that we had to take out, and we made a couple meals out of the meat. Then I took the bones and made a soup out of that, a broth, cooking it for a few days. And then when I went to turn it into an actual meal of soup, at that point, I added some tomato flakes and some chili powder and cumin and red pepper flakes to give it a spicy, more Mexican flavor to it. And so that was nice to be able to have those tomato flakes to easily do that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, my personal top 2 tomatoes now are the Purple Cherokee and the Mortgage Lifter, and then the Black Brandywine's coming in as a close second to those 2. So I hope that gives you some ideas, and please put your suggestions down below. What's your favorite tomatoes? And also I suggest sharing your climate, because climate's going to have a lot of say what tomatoes are going to do best where. So please share that too, so people can get some ideas from you as well. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.